If you'll recite the pledge with me, please. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If you bow with me, please. Heavenly Father, thank you for another day. Thank you that we could gather here to conduct business for the county. Just ask that you would watch over all those who serve throughout the county and throughout our nation. Give them safety as they go about their duties, and just pray for those need your healing touch, that you would touch them and protect them and their families. Be with us tonight and grant us wisdom as we conduct business. It's in Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Welcome to the regular session for Tuesday, November 2nd, 2021. All council members are in attendance. We have a quorum. First order of business is the minutes from the October 5th, 2021 meeting. Did everyone receive the minutes? And if there were so, any corrections need to be noted? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes from last
So moved.
October.
Seconded.
All in favor, please raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So no. Transfers. Everybody get a chance to look at the transfers. We have from clerk, second court, community corrections, local health maintenance, lit, public safety, community corrections. Anybody have any questions that they'd like to ask regarding the transfers?
Lisa, I want to ask you just real quick on the lit public safety with the rescue truck. Did we not have enough money in there for the interest? Is that where it was?
No,
Or?
when we budgeted for 2021, we moved over 2020's figures.
Okay, gotcha.
So there's more
That was all.
principal,
Okay.
less interest, yeah.
Because that's usually, is that still a lease?
Yeah, it's paid off.
Yeah, it's usually, okay.
Marlene, since you're here, can you just bring us up to date on the transfer between the nurse and the part-time clerical, please?
Sure. You'll come up. So we had the 2021 budget, we had put a public health nurse in, a second one. We have a full-time that's been here for a few years now, but we had a public health nurse put into that local health maintenance. We've not been able to fill that position. So at this point, we just need clerical help, so we were just transferring out of the public health position or line item into a clerical position.
Okay.
Since we've moved testing and the vaccines back here to the department, days like tomorrow, there's 80 people coming in for boosters, so
Wow.
it takes a few more of us. And so our Monday is full, and next Wednesday is pretty much so full for appointments. So it's mainly boosters at this point that we're given, a few first COVID vaccines, but mostly boosters.
Who all qualifies for that? Anybody that's already received?
Yep. So
The
right
vaccine?
now we have all 3 boosters in the COVID. And we'll be able to start latter part of this week or first part of next week with the young children up to 5 to 11 years of age. So we've not got complete clearance yet. We have the vaccine, we just don't have the clearance.
But for the boosters, is there an age
Nope,
thing?
anybody can get it as long as they've had their other 2 and it's been at least 6 months,
Okay.
so,
that's
yeah.
what I was wondering.
Yep. And the testing has slowed down considerably. As you well know, we went to yellow this week, which was a relief. Some of our counterparts has spiked back up, so while they were yellow, we were orange, and Adams County now has went orange, and we're yellow. Blackwood County is red, so it's still here and alive, and we're still getting a lot of requests for tests. Not the demand that we had a few weeks ago, though, so we still do that all day on Thursdays and Monday mornings, and then the vaccines are Monday afternoon and all day on Wednesday.
Marlene, do you suggest if somebody wants a booster, they should call or still go through our shot?
calling is fine, they just need to be patient, because a lot of people are just calling for information just to make sure that we've got the vaccine. We've tried to put that information out there, but obviously everybody don't get some of that media that we have out there, but calling is easy, just be patient, we'll get them called back and get them scheduled. Like I said, we're scheduling into next week now, so. And you can get the flu shots at the same time if you so choose, so that's another thing, flu season is here, and we typically give an abundance of flu shots as well, so. And kids' shots, we're past that deadline of school when kids that didn't have their shots, and so they've been sent home notes and said, get them or else, and so those have been coming in quite healthy too, so.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Do you know if our local Walgreens and CVS, are they still doing boosters as well?
They have some of them,
Okay.
so it seems like they get a small amount. I really don't keep up with them.
But you're getting more, is that why you have like the 80 coming to you and?
Yep, we've been able to, through all of it, we have
Okay.
them pretty much so been able to be supplied. At one point, there's been a couple times that we've not had the Johnson & Johnson, but we've been able to keep supplied and keep going on most of them, so, and the boosters too, so, yeah.
Well, thank you for all you guys are doing.
Well, thank you.
It's a lot.
We appreciate it.
Yeah.
Hey,
Okay, thank
Any
you.
other questions?
I'm good.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
Any other questions on transfers from council? Not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the transfers.
Motion to approve.
Second.
And a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? We are approved transfers. Okay, additionals. Nate, can you step forward on this, on the additional, and explain what you guys have going?
I have an additional for, I believe it's a bridge. 54, yes.
Yep.
So all that is.
Where's that at?
54 is the bridge on 600 west over the Salamoy River.
So south, okay.
Yep,
So it's a big
southwest.
report.
Yeah, it's one of the big river
We're talking
bridges.
big
It's
bridge.
currently a 5-span. I think the plan is to go to make that a 3-span bridge. The reason there's an additional on it is essentially the design consultant did more work in 2021 than we estimated in July of 2020. It's under the design contract amount, it's just that we ended up spending more than we had appropriated for the year. They started sending me invoices, we're just getting more progress on it. than
So
we
this job isn't
expected.
under construction right now?
Oh, no,
Oh,
no,
okay.
this is just a design
Okay.
phase. So
Okay.
when we put the budget together for these, we end up appropriating a certain amount of the design work.
Yeah.
We took the design work in the calendar years that it was anticipated to be done. What had just happened is we got a little more work done than we anticipated. The geotech was complete, so a lot of those things fully invoiced. So it's all within the contract amount, it's just whether we paid it out of this year or.
Changes years.
Just changes the years, it's under the overall master agreement.
Yeah.
It's just when we guessed how much we would get done in 2021, we just undershot it.
And this is
So-
a federal project?
Yep, this is one of the federal aid jobs. So there's the money in the Cume Bridge Fund, it's just it's not allocated from Cume Bridge into that specific project. So that's all we're doing is trying to cover what was completed so we can make those payments. And hopefully we don't have that on the next one. It's just unfortunately what happens is I have to guess high on these, so I end up appropriating too much money into a project in any year. Just on this one was one of the few that ended up coming up short. They just did more than we expected.
Okay.
All right?
How about on the highway striping?
Yeah, that's it.
Can you comment on that?
We had a number of different things with that. One, we ended up having credits from one contractor from 1 year, so they're gonna try to carry that forward. That ended up, we weren't able to get them to come out and do work in 2021.
That was the 3RB?
Yeah,
There's
so
an
3RB.
explanation here.
Yeah, so there was some work with 3RB that had funding, so we couldn't get them to come out and do the additional striping. So what Sean did is went back to 3RB and requested just to have a full cash refund or credit for what was owed to the county. So we ended up asking for that credit and then moving forward through, I think it was Airmark was the one that we ended up using. And so we used that money to pay for that, and so we're essentially taking the credit and then trying to put that into the Airmark work that was done this year.
So was
to try to cover
Airmark's
that.
contract, or their quote, more, is that what it was?
Well, we just ended up doing it quite a bit in this year to try to get more striping done. We were getting complaints on Old 301 through Craigville and getting that stripe. We wanted to get that done certainly earlier, it's just we couldn't get, what we struggled with both on asphalt and then even with the striping is getting contractors to respond. There's so much work out there, they're filling their years up, and so now we're getting somewhat desperate to try to get things locked down. And with Sean starting so late in the year, a number of things were already done. So what he and I are doing now is trying to look at what are we gonna do in '22 now, trying to get bids ready, get all of our projects lined up so we can get quotes now so that we're on the books with both the striping contractors, asphalt, and the like. Because that's gonna hurt us if, certainly if infrastructure packages happen like this and they start putting more money into the market, it's just gonna make it harder and harder. There's not enough contractors to do the work.
And just curious, Lisa, that's coming out of the highway budget, right? Okay, no general, okay.
No.
I was looking at the item number and I assumed that 11 or 111.
Yep. So,
Okay.
makes sense?
Yep,
Certainly, thank you.
thanks.
Yeah.
All right, I'll entertain a motion for the additionals.
So moved. Okay,
Do you have a motion
I'll second.
and a second? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Pass 7-0. Sheriff?
Evening.
Good evening.
Evening.
Handed out the monthly activity report for October. We have, it's been a busier month as of late in the last week or so. Also, there's the report of income generated so far this year. I don't see anything that's kind of out of the ordinary. I know that we had reported that the state is going to refund back part of our gun permit monies now since they're free. There has been, we reported a while back, I've seen some messages this week from the Sheriff's Association. There's a few counties that have not reported it yet, so they're trying to get that locked in for next year. So hopefully we'll start getting reimbursed for some of those funds next year. So, and I think I brought it up before, they used our 2020 amount, which was actually probably one of our higher years, so.
Will you report that back in the gun permit line item
Yep,
when you
yep,
start
as soon
getting
as we
that?
get it, it should go in there as income generated, so.
Okay.
Yep, because we get to obviously receipt that money in, and we can use that towards anything firearms related, vests, ammo, tasers, those type of things, so. As of a couple hours ago, we have 62 inmates in jail. 20 of those are pretrial circuit, 20 are pretrial superior, 15 are F6, and 3 are DOC. So we've been continuing to work with the courts on video court. Also, we've been working with Adams County on eliminating a few transports here and there by working amongst our agencies to eliminate some of those on both ends. We've been working with their Superior Court judge over there, who's really a supporter of the video court. So that is helping our numbers to remain low and getting things through the process, less contacts, less people that are being transported and those type of things. So we started construction today, so I think I can still hear the jackhammers in my ear, and the building kind of shook all day long, so they were out there busting up some concrete and stuff. So we are in full swing. They had one crew in there doing starting on the water conservation stuff and the blocks. And they had another crew from Jackson Construction out working in the new area where the new Sallyport and the new portion is. And they got to put in a temporary new sidewalk for our employee entrance because that's getting all tore up out there. So, so we've been all hands on deck trying to get things going so that they can start building that and get our temporary intake going. So that's kind of the main focus. We had a construction meeting today with Amoresco, construction manager, to kind of go over the timeline for things. It sounds like it's definitely a game of supply and demand when it comes to certain things. Their roofing supplies, just for the rubber roof stuff, they don't even think they'll get till April of next year. So that's something that probably won't happen until then. Obviously, they got to build the new part and be able to roof that as well. So, so there's maybe some different items that might be happening there. So we're meeting bi-weekly right now. starting today, and then we'll meet every 2 weeks, kind of to keep up with that. So they've been doing a really good job of kind of keeping us in the loop as we go along. And obviously, we have to operate every day in there, which is a big pain with this going on. So we know that, and we're actually going to lose more space once they start gutting our current intake area. We'll lose some holding cells and whatnot. And every time they work on a block, we have to empty that block out, so we have to put them somewhere. So we've got them on a tight schedule that they have to get it done that day so we can move them back in, and those type of things. So it's definitely gonna be a chess game for the next year or so as we go through this, but it's all good stuff. It's just gonna be chaotic in there for a little while. So the only other thing, just to report to you, I think 2 commissioner meetings ago, we went before the commissioners, me and Donnie Craig, who's the chief of the Bluffton Fire Department. If you followed along, the commissioners created an E911 ordinance probably 4 or 5 months ago that formed a board to kind of oversee this 911 center, so to speak. We've talked for years about a combined dispatch. So as a group, we have come together. I think we have our 5th meeting tomorrow, or next week, sometime this month.
Yeah.
We've had our 4th one.
Yeah,
But you're on that board, Seth. We have hired and went before the commissioners to ask for some funds to pay for a consultant that has helped with combined dispatching centers and those type of things. You hear consolidated dispatch, but that's not really what we're doing. It's consolidated was when there used to be a time when there was more than one 911 center in a county. The law changed years ago that a county couldn't have more than 2. Some counties had more than 2, and when they merged those, that was a consolidation. We are, the majority of the board is really kind of emphasized on, we feel it's best for the community and the safety of our, public safety and the community to have a combined dispatching center for all public safety, EMS, fire, police. But in the mix of that, we have already moved some of our radio dispatching to the 911 center now. So if you've heard any chatter on that, they have picked up some of our dispatching. So we're kind of been working through that for about the last month. We started that in October, at the beginning of October. That's been going really well, but the whole main focus and goal on this is that the consultant will come in and work with the county and city attorneys to try to help form an interlocal agreement between the city and county to kind of understand how this is paid for. There's really no set ordinance on how we pay for it now, and those type of things. So as we move along, I just kind of wanted to get you up to speed real quick on what we're doing there and looking at that. So I'm the vice chair on that 911 board. Don Craig is the chairman on that board. So the whole goal would be eventually an agreement between the city and the county, and then eventually the board would not necessarily be what it's ordinanced for now as a 911 advisory board. It'd be more of a 911 board that would, based on how the interlocal agreement is established, would dictate how we, what responsibilities that board would have. So, but obviously the stakeholders, sheriff, chiefs, fire, and all those are included in that, so that we're making decisions for that, and that we're operating one center, not multiple. And a good example was we had, you've heard the
Have you
shooting.
comment on the burn
Yeah,
apparel
we had
shooting?
the burn apparel shooting that happened in the old system. That 911 call would have came in. We dispatched for Ossian, so that call would have, emergency stuff would have been put out, but a lot of stuff would have been transferred and relayed, and people calling 911. You get massive 911 calls and incidents like that. So to have all that in one center, we were already doing our dispatching through them. And Mike Miller, the 911 director, just made a comment at how much easier it was. I mean, they literally had all the information in one center, was controlling the dispatching of all public safety on that. I think they were apprehended in
30 minutes roughly?
yeah, so all that information coming in, vehicle description, everything else, was able to get out. The state police saw somewhat what matched it, and they, by God, were lucky enough to pull the car over, and it was the suspect,
That
so.
was pretty efficient, you know.
It was, and I think there would have been a lot more confusion, and that's my example of providing a dispatching center, 911 center that's in the best interest of the public. In that sense, there's no sense of repeating that between agencies and splitting it up. So we are in support of it, for sure, so, but,
I know we've already talked about this, but we won't see any payroll advantages because your dispatchers are already multitasking and you're just gonna roll those
Correct.
into,
I have what's called, we call it central now, but it was our central dispatch, and that's not their only job. It's only a small portion of their job. So in essence, yes, we took that dispatching portion out of it, but that central command is the heart of what keeps an eye on the jail, the movement within the jail, the door locking systems, the cameras, all the things. Through all the construction you saw, we have 2 pods within the jail that typically, when it was built for those to have people in them, and we do that through our central command. They're the eyes and ears of the jail. They monitor, inmates that may be on medical or suicide watch. We have to watch them through camera systems and those types of things. So I still have to man that room 24/7, 7 days a week. So it still takes me the same amount of people. Now, we may change their job responsibilities, but that wasn't their sole, at the 911 center, that is, taking calls and dispatching and those type of things is a majority of their job. At our facility, it wasn't. And for me, in the safety of the jail, they're better off not being disturbed with trying to dispatch a call and answering the phone at the same time and trying to watch what's going on in the jail and unlock doors. And it is a multitask job, so they can concentrate more on what's important, the functions that are going on in the jail at the time. So unfortunately, I'd like to say, yeah, we move that over and I can give them 5 employees, but I just can't do that, so.
as far as the equipment, they'll still have to have the equipment to communicate with the deputies, though, right? Is that,
Yeah, our traffic is all ran through them, but we will still maintain all the same equipment that's in there. So if, say, Bluffton had a fire at their dispatch center, they could transfer everything and their operators could come out and operate out of our central room. So we will still have all the equipment to operate in the event of a backup center, so to speak. So we'll have that available.
thank you.
Yep. Any other questions on that?
No,
So
appreciate
just-
the update.
Yeah, so just be prepared. I know at some point we're gonna have to, we fund part of it now. I know the county funds part of it now through 911 funds that are created, but, I've seen their budget. It doesn't cover the whole thing. So I think we're gonna have to be creative, maybe with lit money or public safety money that, through this interlocal agreement, where I think it's probably better off that we do have it in an agreement to how we're helping fund this as a whole, and then we're one entity.
Yeah, I'll have to get some sort of degree to what
Right.
that fund
Yep,
needs
yep.
to be. And then
So that's part of the,
looks like.
yeah, that's part of the board's thing, and the help from this consultant that's coming in. He ran it, he's a former police officer, he ran a 911 center. He's part of the board for the 911 that creates the funds through the state that you guys receive monthly. That he was on that, he helped create that bill, so he's a wealth of knowledge, and we definitely don't want to reinvent the wheel when there's people out there with best practices. And
Sure.
he was very, very reasonable cost-wise, so, but, yeah, other than that, I don't have anything else unless you guys have any questions.
Anybody have any more?
Or girls.
Thanks, Sheriff.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thanks, Sheriff.
Thank you.
All right, RSD bunch, who all wants to come up?
Yeah.
By golly, I never say no, let's go. I think, good evening all. Been here for a few months.
Yeah.
It's a different look on this table. I guess we'll try this, see how it works. I think everyone's familiar with certainly Mark Berry, the RSD's attorney, Leon, of course,
Even Mark,
and then LA is our superintendent.
Mark? Thank you.
I wanted to at least get everyone up to date here.
Yeah,
I know that
that's okay.
the RSD adventure that we funded a year ago gets its own press and has its own meetings, but I thought this would be a nice opportunity to bring everyone up to speed with where we are. And I know that obviously the council's funding to get this whole thing started makes it important to come in and do that. So what I wanted to cover was, first of all, the loan that we put together for the RSD initially, the $500,000. Obviously, I don't know if you read the paper, I hope you do, but I think you've seen that the return on that investment was pretty dramatic. It was a multi-million-dollar grant that was put into Wells County to start the next projects, or a couple projects that we had in place. And since then, both of those projects are underway, with hopefully a completion date of, what day, L.A.?
Probably February,
Okay.
realistically.
So we expect to see the first two communities with sewers and in order by what we're
With
expecting.
connections too, or just
That-
contractor completion?
That'll be part of it.
So
It'll
get
actually,
up and running
It would open
in February?
We think maybe that
'Cause
Murray
each-
will be done by the first of the year, and so most of the connections should be done weather dependent. But
Yeah.
with the late start on the Liberty Center, it may be that the final connections aren't made until maybe even May.
Spring.
so as it is right now, the first two are in place. Now, we have taken a pretty aggressive position on moving these projects forward quickly. And of course, we have taken all the steps to go into Petroleum, Rifesburg, Toxin, Craigville, Kingsland, all with the notion that we should move as rapidly as possible. So, as the goal is septic elimination. So, where we are today, obviously, there are another group of grant funds that have been put in place, and what's that number at
It'd
the
be
moment, Nate?
$5 million from the State Water Infrastructure Fund. That'd be the SWIFT dollars that.
That's this last one you received,
Yep,
nothing
that's
to
what
do
we
with the other.
The first
Murray.
two, the 6.6
Yeah, that's-
are already set.
That's already.
That grant money was
This is a
in.
new, the 5 million's a new.
Yep, so the $5 million's new for what would be considered whatever
And it's
project
a
two or
grant,
phase two.
and it's a
That's-
grant, not
That's
a loan.
grant. Yep.
That's right, that's grant money as
That's
well.
been received?
No, it's
Or
not
it's
been
promised?
received, but it's been awarded. It's subject to us doing a project
Yep.
to be received, and so that project is we're in the process of engineering those projects. Those projects are basically ready to go to bid soon, and so when we waited for quite a few months, hoping that we were going to get more funds even from SRF, thinking that we would be able to do Toxin and Kingsland at the same time, but the award came back and they either awarded SWIFT money or they awarded grant dollars from SRF, but they didn't do both. It was one or the other. And so Wells County, same as Adams County, got a $5 million SWIFT grant. And we didn't get any other funds from SRF. So with the $5 million SWIFT money and in combination with the money that the county's pledged from ARP funds for sewer infrastructure, then we can do this Craigville project.
No.
So
Well, back up right there, the AR, what are we,
American Rescue Plan?
we
We have not approved that.
have not approved it.
Yeah.
Even though that's been published in the paper that,
Yeah,
that
we-
you guys are using that, that has not been
That,
approved.
Okay, well, that's something.
I know it's
we'll-
been talked about, but it hasn't been approved for
Okay.
this council.
Well, that's something that we'll have to, talk about.
We're not saying
soon.
we're against it, but we haven't.
yeah.
Okay.
well,
That
that's
has-
all
Well, then I've
new
been-
to us.
I guess I've been
Yeah,
missing.
that's great, this is all new.
So, but yes, we'll have to have a conversation about that very soon, because in order to make, a Craigville project go, the district will have to have some of those funds to make it work, so that, you can keep rates where they are, and do that, and do a project. So, yeah, we definitely need to have a conversation about that very soon.
I'd say, yeah, definitely.
Well, that conversation was what, with the commissioners then, Nate? Is that how that
Yeah,
started?
well, the ARP committee or whatever was established and some of the planning for those dollars, so whatever that plan needs to be established, then we need to get that, we need to get that in writing, because that is one of the conditions of the $5 million SWIFT grant is for that co-funding,
That local match.
that local match.
Yeah.
And I believe it's in the plan.
So,
Yeah.
that's was my understanding that it wasn't the plan. I don't know if it was not appropriate because it was established as part of the second round of the revenue.
And that's of the 2.7 that's available coming next spring?
The two, yes,
Mhm.
yes.
Because the first we've committed
To the jail.
to the jail.
All of that's been going to the jail, so.
Yep.
Who's on this? There's a planning group for this? Is that what's?
So it's somewhat of an informal group.
Sure.
Okay.
Commissioner
Vanover.
myself. This was over seven.
I
I think
was-
you had met in at least one of those.
I
I went to one of the meetings, that was a while ago.
Okay.
Vicky was on there. But it's been a long time since we.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't even
Hasn't been
remember.
meeting Since the jail project was kicked
Yeah.
off.
Well, if,
How much money would y'all be asking?
well, that's the key point. The 5 million is a grant, but there's a matching consideration for it. So if you want to try to capture the 5 million, you'd have to put up the 2 million, which that's not a. full-
Which we're saying that's where we want to bring the
Right.
bullet from.
Which that would be the next project is, we looked at the different projects, whether it be Toxin, Kingsland, Petroleum, Rifesburg. Craigville is the most logical one because it can be funded with the SWIFT and ARP dollars and not have a bond created for it. So in essence, Craigville with the grant money and the ARP commitment, that would then afford Craigville to have its project move forward. So the same situation where we took the initial 500,000 to get the engineering force to go to grants in March, April, or go to bids, this same revenue stream would do that for Craigville. So in essence, where the first time we went and got Murray and Liberty Center and they got the 6.6, this next, what I'm saying is if we extend the loan or extend the what I consider an operating loan, that 500,000, it'll be leveraged to capture that next project. So what we're doing here is saying, instead of give the money back to the county, we're saying, let's go ahead and throw into the Craigville project to get that funding to do that, which would then in turn provide them no debt with Craigville being Seward at that point.
So you're planning for these upcoming, okay, the first two projects was Murray and Liberty Center.
Yes.
You originally borrowed this money for that reason.
Yes.
That's what got you going, and then it was,
It got the
in
operating.
Indiana Code 1326, it's usually paid back when you get your loan, is what's typically the
Yes,
language of it.
and they will pay it back, and what we're saying is.
So
to go
now
ahead
you're
and use it
taking that,
again.
because you borrowed like 200-some thousand originally, right? If I remember right when it started, then another
matched-
200.
it
It
matched
ended
to
up
fi-
coming
it
up to
matched to
500,000.
right.
Come up to 500,000. So
Correct.
so you haven't done anything with Craigville with that 500,000 then?
Well, we.
Correct.
That was for the first two.
That was tied to the first two.
Correct.
So
So that's got Liberty Center and Murray where they got their grant funds.
Yep.
The total
So that's
cost of the
the-
project
And-
is 7.2 million, but they
Still
granted
needs some
6.6 to the residents of Liberty and Murray.
So you didn't
So
have
that-
enough money to start
Well,
into this next project for your
Right.
design and stuff,
Tied
right?
to the first.
Right.
So, correct.
The engineering for the next project will then be what, close to 500,000
Yeah,
again?
total
So-
of upwards of 600 because of how we were looking at 3 phases at one time.
Right.
So we're looking at three project areas. We're gonna be able to proceed to bid with one because of the amount of the grant money we have available.
So the trick here is, do we want to go and push forward to keep eliminating sewer with the money that's already been allocated? Or do we want to just pay the county back and then we'll have to sit back and that's your choice? I mean, at the end of the day, you're going to be ultimately giving up, what, $5 million to not proceed. And at the same time, I'm not sure,
Not good, Sam.
No.
I'm not sure that that
But
makes sense.
but you gotta still come up with 2 million more
Which would be
to
the ARP.
get your
that was-
five, to get your total
Right.
project, right? Because
Right.
you'll get the
Well-
5, but
Correct.
you've gotta have 2 more to do your project.
Well,
Well,
you've got
we-
to have the 2 to get to the 5.
You gotta have 7 total, right, to do
We
Craigville?
don't get the 5 without the 2.
Craigville only cost 6.3 million, wasn't it?
Oh.
It's not 7 million for
But
that.
but in reality, that's what we're talking, I mean, again,
Right. It was
to keep from stealing from Peter to pay Paul here, I'm trying to figure out where you're at as
Essentially,
we
what
move
you-
along here.
Correct. What you're
Right.
doing is taking the initial line of credit that was specific to one project, and then what you're
Carrying it
essentially
over
doing
to
is you're
another
creating
project.
into a revolving loan.
Instead of paying it off, you
So
want
that
to
was
continue
one
it on.
project's funded, instead of doing a reimbursement directly, the project incurs the interest, and then it rolls into the next project, and so into the next project. Really, what we potentially will have is is Craigville could be built out with this, and then we'll have 2 other project areas essentially shovel-ready. We just won't file for permits, or we'll pull the projects from the permit consideration.
But at the end of the day, where is the money coming from and when will it come back to the county?
Well,
Half mil.
this resolution here that I have, that's in front of you is a resolution to renew the operating loan line of credit to the sewer district. And it says that when those funds are received, then it'll be repaid back to the county. And I believe, based upon the claim that we have for reimbursement from SRF, I believe that check is probably going to come directly to the county, okay? And so it'll go to the county. This resolution is saying that the district, the line of credit is renewed so the district can turn around and borrow it again and then pay for the engineering on this project number 2 so that they can get the $5 million and do the next project.
Because we have a note established already with this, so that you couldn't, that promissory note, you can't continue on with
It'll
that?
expire in July.
You have to have a resolution here?
Well, I think the resolution you originally passed authorized the line of credit to the district in the amount of $500,000. The
Up to,
district-
yeah, it
Up
was
to the
up to,
500. I
yeah.
think the district maybe
Okay.
signed 3 separate promissory notes. So at least 2, if not almost all 3 of those are going to be paid back here, we think next week. And I think a check's gonna come to the county.
Because I've got the invoice, I know an invoice has been
Yes,
sent,
I think,
so.
I think the check is gonna come back to the county. This resolution is just saying, hey, we're renewing
You
the
wanna
line of
bo-
credit.
borrow
so that-
500.
So that you can do project number 2.
Okay.
I'm not even sure we have to do this. I think it's good record keeping to do
Sure.
it because I wanna have the project number 1 and separate from project number 2, so we can explain that to SRF because we're hoping to get back
Sure.
from SRF everything we spend.
No, it makes logical sense, as long as you're
So-
paying back from what you did from,
Right.
it's just a circle is what you're.
Well, see, initially, if you remember, when we talked about it in the beginning, we said, look, this will get it started and then it'll be on its way. And that was the first notion, but then as we gathered more information from multiple communities that are all in the same boat, that the worst, you know, this all started with River Terrace. And then what we've come to conclude is that all these other communities are actually in dire need as well. And what we've seen is that rather than be reactive to complaints like River Terrace or even the North Ossian problem, taking steps to these communities that the health department's already got complaints and there's issues, but IDEM hasn't acted on them. We're attempting to be proactive with these moves and try to solve problems before they begin. And what we've gathered is that there is a lot of community buy-in with these because clearly development has been stifled in these areas because of a sewer problem. So there's more to this than just fixing a problem. It's creating an opportunity at the same time.
Well,
So-
I might be a little slow tonight, but I'll ask again. From where and when, what bucket?
The state revolving loan fund, when we spend money for projects, the state revolving loan fund reallocates the money from their grant. They have a bucket that's their grant money. When we spend the money to do engineering, anything to do with a project, then we file vouchers, and then those numbers are submitted, and then they wire the money either to whoever loaned it or to the contractor that actually performed the task. So those dollars come directly from the Bank of New York, right?
So that's what bucket, and you're
That's
asking
what
for another
bucket.
year extension, is that what you're saying?
Well, and I don't even want to say it's 1 year at a time, because if we can do Craigville now, moving forward, then right behind it would be Petroleum and Rifesburg. And then maybe in another year, it might be Thompson and Kingsland, and then who knows, it could be.
But each one of those would require another large,
Well, it's a revolving,
What
it's a
you're
revolving
doing is
operating
you're
loan.
taking the
So
same
you-
$500,000.
Yeah,
$500,000
Just using the same
Same
dollar
amount of
over
money,
and
it's
over
just
again.
recycling it. So as we get this, as this reimbursement comes back from SRF, I'll give you a copy of what this voucher is, but what the intent is we'll borrow that money back again, create a new account with a new line of interest associated with Project 2, and then when Project 2's done, then we can look at Project 3, and we'll just recycle that same amount of money around, and that $500,000 essentially is turning the crank of these
So
projects.
my only question here, Mark, from reading this resolution is that there is, for this 500,000, there's, and I read it real quickly, so I apologize if I missed it, but there is no payback listed in here for a time frame or after project 2 or with grant money, or is it in here and I just happen to miss it?
No, it's under it's renewing the original resolution 2020.
But is it leaving it open-ended then?
-6. No, we have promissory notes that
There's
have.
an actual promissory.
that have-
But I mean, they have to come back to us to do project 3.
Because the
Correct.
promissory note.
Because as you roll it over, I mean, I'm all for it, but I want it to be brought before
Yeah,
this
exactly.
body to make
We
sure
would have
we're
to come
okay to
back
do another
from- yeah.
resolution.
Those
have to come
originally
back.
promissory notes would need to be showed they're paid,
Correct.
right?
Right.
That's what, from these original, that's up to the 500,000.
So even though there's not a date on here or anything saying it's coming from grant money, it's assumed via the promissory notes that it's gonna be paid back as money comes available from the grants when they're received.
So I'm assuming you'd create a new
Okay.
notes, what you're gonna do.
Right, right,
Yeah,
yeah.
just like we did
Okay.
before when.
That's what I just
But yeah.
wanted clarification on
As it
that.
sits right now, once they wire the money back to the county, we're back to square one again. And that's why
So
we're
the-
saying, let's be proactive with
The
this.
500,000 that we're talking here, with that money to pay this note, this invoice for that original promissory notes, you have the money to pay back to the county, right?
At the moment, it's 473,000.
So you're short, you're short
It's
on-
short
on
for now, yes.
What you have, okay.
Because what they do is they.
To
they
clean
will
it up,
not-
you know what I'm saying, to clean it up, the
Right.
cash comes back. I know it sounds like but
It's
then
the-
it can be.
It's the right way to do it.
Yeah,
Because it'll be
exactly. It should be,
revolving.
yeah.
It's like a living operating loan. And when we
Mm-hmm.
first set it up, we said, well, this will just get it started. But then in retrospect, we were just trying to solve a River Terrace problem and move on. But then now it's kind of grown into, just like what we talked about, this
Yeah.
thing will grow as it evolves because there's a need out there for sewer.
But as a conversation right now, you don't have enough to pay this invoice
The,
then.
the full 500, no, because the.
Plus there was the interest that's in, because again, the taxpayers' money,
We could pay
Supposed to be-
it, but then it would deplete all the funds that the RSD has. So then we'd be right back to square one again. So in the goal here is that as there's customers coming online, it will generate revenue. But see, when you're in construction phase,
I
you're only
understand
gathering a
that.
portion of the revenue.
So in your loan, the loan that you received for these two projects, you didn't have enough to pay this back?
Well, the project's vouchers as they're put together, they will not subsidize administration, if you will.
The reimbursements the district gets are specific to project-only expenses. So expenses that the district incurs specific to like insurance policies. So E&O insurance that the district has to carry for decisions that they make, those had to come out, those were paid out of that operating loan.
Accounting.
Rentals, accounting fees, those are paid out of that, those are not reimbursable expenses. Even just venues for public hearing or some legal notices for some of these items.
Well, and personnel.
Some of them personnel. So because of just the lack of cash and simply trying to keep our interim rates low, the district is positive each month. As I've met with Trent Booker on the accounting, we're positive each month. It's just unfortunate because there were just a number of startup costs that the district had to incur over the first year and a half that were spent out of that SRF is not reimbursing, that they're considering operations of the district versus project specific.
So to me, that's
And
a
so-
2-year cycle to get those cleaned back
Yeah.
up. Because
So
you'll have
in
more
theory,
revenue
the conversation we're
coming
having here, you don't have the money to pay back,
Not
to start
100%.
to start the next
Right.
series of your $500,000 loan.
Well, they wouldn't borrow 500,000. So what's in this resolution is that the district.
But I'm saying to pay this invoice that cleans up
To make it 100%.
Liberty Center and
Correct.
Murray,
No.
you don't have the money to do that, to
Today we do
start
not.
your next.
No.
Well, the
process.
terms of the notes were that they were for 2 years, up to 2 years.
Up to 2 years.
From the date that they were borrowed. And there was 3 different loans. And I think the first one was probably in June or July of 2020. And then there maybe was one in August and maybe in September. So the notes themselves have varying terms of being due. The resolution says the original resolution says when the district receives reimbursement funds for expenses that were expended with those loan funds, that they will reimburse the county. That's the $473,000 that we should get next week. And so as the district receives that, they're gonna pay the county, that's gonna go back to the county.
To
Then the
pay
district-
down, to pay down on this
Well, it will
$500,000.
pay off
Correct.
promissory note 1, promissory note 2, and probably most of 3.
So we'll carry a balance
Yes,
going
there-
into
there's-
this.
And then we'll just do another promissory note, then
Promissory
back out
note.
for the other.
Right.
Okay.
Not to exceed 500.
And for 2
total.
years again, or whatever
Three
terms.
promissory notes that are sitting there with project 1, and then you may have just one or two promissory notes for project two. They're just essentially because of the cash flow that's the nature of the district, you're gonna have an overlap of the last promissory note from one and the start of the second.
27,000 is what it's short today. And it'll be short because until those houses are connected and online, they're paying the $95. Right now, it's only collecting $35 per house row because they're not connected today.
Right.
So had they been started construction, connected by December, all of the things that would make it perfect, obviously is a great goal, but reality is with supplies the way they are and access to labor, it's created a delay.
You did say though from Trent that with the 35 a month that's being paid now and maybe anybody who might be on at 95 or whatever, that it is a positive cash flow?
It is a positive cash flow.
So it's not, so the RSD is not losing money right
Oh, no.
now?
RSD's not losing money, it's
Okay.
just when you're working at this rate, and we're even with those that are refusing to pay right now, which is a smaller percentage each.
I was gonna say, I know
They're
last
starting to
meeting you said it
decrease.
was 25 that were delinquent or something. Do you know what the number is now?
LA was the one that.
Yeah, LA was
tracking
the number
it.
today.
You know,
I haven't
Oh.
checked lately, but it is getting better.
Okay.
Each month we are, I did talk to.
If you could find out and just shoot us an email and let us know, because I am curious about the delinquencies.
yeah, the delinquency's an issue, but there's been requests to try to be as gracious and patient with people.
Thank
But
you.
it's a risk to the district because they're unsecured liabilities.
Yeah.
And so when we want to be good stewards to get the money back, or essentially that's a risk to the district, certainly is to do that. So certainly when, I know that that's been an interest of council, the commissioners as well, for the residents to not exercise the lien ability of the district, but it's something as you're requesting, we want to see these funds and when can the county get paid back? Well, that is something that the district is trying to be patient as best as it can, and Lewis has been working hard with the property owners to try to get a voluntary compliance on what needs to be done, because this is county.
Like I said, that's your,
Well, I
that's the reason,
understand that.
that's your business.
Certainly, when you're
It's
asking
not-
about
It'll
the-
get there, you know as well as I do,
Yeah.
acceptance comes as time passes.
Sure,
And it'll get there.
Well, when they're actually using
Exactly.
what you're putting in.
Exactly. I've
Well,
always said the
certainly
NRA
help
rate was a
them
little
to
bit
swallow
not popular
the bill.
because when we weren't even
It's never
living in
gonna
Liberty Center, I go, I don't blame those guys. I wouldn't do it either. If it was
That's
a
what
guy
we
chicken.
chatted about last time.
So I have a question for you guys. So after this next round of ARP money, if we grant that, what's the long-term plan for doing these future projects? Because we're not gonna have ARP money to sit there and be able to use that to get
Right.
these
I think that's a-
grants from the state.
That's a good question. I think we probably are gonna have to scale back in terms of how many areas can you do at once. And so I think what you're seeing is the difficulty that any district has starting up. You know, a district, is almost like is when a child is born, it comes into the world with nothing. And they don't have any money, they don't have anything. And so when the district is organized, there is no funding available for the district to pay for its overhead, expenses, administrative, whatever its expenses are, it has no money at all. Unless somebody provides seed capital, economic development capital, or something to seed the district to get it up and going until it can get to a point that it has enough users to be able to pay for its operational cost. And only 200 users, a district cannot exist with only 200 users. By its nature, it is growth-oriented. That is, the economic development component is, and you see that as it gets going, it has to be growth-oriented so that it can get some economies of scale, it's got enough users, and all that ties back to the rate. The district could potentially have only 200 customers indefinitely, but the rate would probably have to be $150 a month. In order to keep your rates it's at 95 now, and if there's any hope of it ever being able to drop that rate or hold that rate, then you have to grow in order to be able to sustain itself. And so the district, had expenses to get up and going, and the nature of these grants and the loan dollars that you get is they pay for engineering, they pay for design, they pay for the plans, they pay for construction costs, but they don't reimburse you for your administrative expenses, your overhead.
And that's where the district, when it gets started, has that difficulty. And that's why it's so important, it needs support from somebody, from somewhere, and it's, county, economic development funds, ARP funds. They've got a bill introduced now that ARPA funds may loosen up the restrictions on what you can.
That was gonna be my next question.
Yeah.
The restrictions of that, does this comply with,
Well,
sewer districts comply with?
well, yeah, for use of, for
Using
construction,
Okay.
yes, absolutely. And so, but they're also proposing to loosen those restrictions that you can use up to $10 million, which Adams doesn't have that much, and neither does Wells, but you can use up to $10 million for other governmental services. And hopefully that'll get passed. That may free some things up with what you can use it for. But, so that's the difficulty is just getting to that point where you can sustain yourself. And so, the point, or the purpose here is just to renew this line of credit. We want to compartmentalize it, so we've got project number 1, and we've got the promissory notes we had from project number 1. We want to get those paid back as soon as possible, and then we'll have a project number 2 promissory note that's going to overlap a little bit, and then hopefully we'll have a closing on that next April or May. I think we have until June now to close,
Yeah, they gave an
which
extension on it
surprises
because
me,
they
because
delay.
usually it's May or April. And so when that closes, then the district will submit reimbursement request to SRF, get money back, pay back the county, hopefully everything, and we'll be done, and then looking forward to see if they can apply for another round of funding. I think in the future, what we've seen from this $5 million grant award, I don't want to sound, ungrateful whatsoever. The $5 million award is great, it's significant, but it's $1 million less than you got last year. $1.5 million less. Okay, so I think what we're seeing going forward is, and we've got to be careful, we don't want to overspend on engineering more project areas than we might get funds for. Okay, now, if we're able to pay for the now, we're actually, the way this is structured is we're going to be paying for engineering for project 3, which means we'll have to borrow less on project 3, which helps you keep your rates down, or keep your rates in check.
Yeah, technically, if
So-
the math is right with where we're projecting Craigville, there'll be no debt incurred. Liberty and Murray has a $500,000 loan. It's a debt.
Or-
It's a debt that's
Your
there.
state revolving fund.
It was 7.2 million, they gave us 6.6. We
Yeah,
had to
it's-
borrow $5 million, or the 500,000 that's part of that $95 rate. With Craigville being put in with no debt, that's gonna give the district the opportunity to generate revenue quicker.
Right.
By adding those customers with no debt load. So what in essence, our $95 rate will be generating revenue at a quicker pace because it won't be subsidizing a debt load with it.
So
So
one other question, if things go forward and you pay back down on this loan that you had, or these notes that you had, I assume you'll pay interest with it too?
Yes, I put it right in the
To catch up,
resolution,
okay.
yes.
To
If
make
I
sure.
put it in the
Same rates
resolution, that we
in
would
there.
pay the
Okay.
interest. I think
Make
that's
sure, like,
important.
again, the counties, that's their rainy day money
Yep.
that the taxpayers are
Right.
expecting to, they're getting money, obviously, interest
Absolutely.
for it, so
Right.
it's not great, but it's,
Right.
again, we're trying to be fair on the interest rate, obviously.
No, and I put in here that that interest will be paid current on the $500,000. So everything, all the interest that's accrued so far will be paid back to the county.
Steve, to your question, how do you proceed with like project 3? If there's no ARP money that's being tied and there's no SWIFT, and how are you gonna do the next? There is the conventional process within SRF of forgivable loan. That's what we received on the first round of projects. So we would anticipate that the remainder of project 2, which would be the Craigville, or Kingsland and Toxin, those will get submitted to SRF in April for the next funding round. We would anticipate hearing something. By the time project 2 closes, we should know roughly where we stand with what would be project 3. And then the process continues on and the cycle continues. And there may be more loan associated with project 3 than we have with project 1, and certainly 0 with project 2. But once, as the district, the economy of scale changes, the operational cost of overhead actually gets better and better. the worst situation for overhead expenses at the beginning, because there's no revenue, there's not enough users. It gets more customers, it's gonna help out significantly. But Project 3 will have to stand on its own legs, but with the support of having an operation in place. It took, shockingly enough, it's frustrating from these, just getting voucher formats set up and getting the accountant up to speed with how we want to proceed with that so that the claims are ready to go and the process is done. It's a bit of a learning curve for everybody involved in getting the district prepared to run as a utility.
Well, yeah, you have
And
to,
that's-
for each project, you have to, it's somewhat of a guess, but you have to gauge how much you're likely to receive in either forgivable loan or funds like the SWIFT money, and figure out how much can you afford to borrow for this next project. And so, we had this conversation with Baker Tilly last week, and looking at, after we got the $5 million SWIFT award, and I posed the question to them, it is, how much can the district afford to borrow per connection and keep our rate stable? You know, that's an important number. You gotta find out what that number is. And when you find out that, then you can back into what kind of a project you can do. You know, if you can afford to borrow $1 million and it's a $5 million project, and then the question is, how many users are you gonna connect for that $5 million project to pay that $1 million loan, and can you keep your rate? And so you really have to kind of back into it. And so I think you'll see, going forward, I just get the feeling that they've put kind of an arbitrary cap on how much forgivable money they're going to award on these projects. And I think we saw that this year. I think the answer is $5 million. Because there were three communities, Adams is one, Wells is one, and there was one other, and I'm not sure who it was, that had applications in for SRF and were also enrolled for SWIFT, and they all got $5 million in SWIFT, and that's it. They didn't get any more from SRF. There are other communities that got money from SRF, and I think the max that anybody got there was 5, and I think a lot of them got less. So I think Wells got as much as you could get this round. They just weren't giving out awards of more than $5 million to anybody. So I think Wells got the most that you could get.
I think we got the most, we were even tied with a number of other communities for the most that they
But
gave out. They were the max.
We were the newbie, right? I mean, basically.
Right.
This is our second time at projects, and so
Well,
that's where that was.
Let's face it, it's been a long time trying to get it, to get to this point.
I get that. I still go back to the $500,000, you got 11.5 million back. That's a great return.
And we're essentially recycling the save $500,000, we just want to recycle that around again.
well, in your first project, you have to, and I think I've said this before, but in your first project, you got $6 million in forgivable,
6.6.
6.6 in forgivable.
All right, I'd
And I
like
think
to
you
wrap this
borrowed-
conversation up,
Sure.
guys.
Okay.
I don't want to sit here all night and just
No, I
chat.
understand.
Well,
Appreciate your time.
are you asking for us to pass this resolution tonight?
But we're not going to do that because we're going to have our county attorney look at this before we pass the resolution.
All right.
But we can get, I don't think we can do that between meetings, so you'll have to come back. We'll have to do this at our next meeting.
Your meeting is the first Monday of each
December,
month.
Yeah.
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Yeah,
First
Monday.
Tuesday.
I think it's the 7th, isn't it? Yeah, December 7th.
December 7th, okay.
But does anyone
All
have
right.
any other questions on how it all
The-
works?
the
I know
only
there was a
thing-
lot of conversation, but
Yeah.
did we get to the questions and answers part?
One question I'm curious of is, going forward, because of time, how long this is, the interest rate that we're talking here, showing it at 1%. I don't know what could happen as far as our banking, where we park the money. I know it's, at the last time we spoke a year ago, right? It's been pretty much about a year ago. That was 1% was pretty much where we were at. That's the only thing I can think of is that number, that 1%, or it's the taxpayers' money. I mean, if it was sitting in rainy day and they're making more money on it, I mean, that's all we asked was the same amount of money is what we were asking.
I
So
think
don't
what
know
we
where-
could do is the money
be
that's
adjusted.
getting repaid now will be paid out at the 1%.
And yeah,
according
we
to the note.
understand that, yeah, because that's where
But any
the notes
renewal
were.
of this, if the county believes that you need more than 1%.
I mean, I can't see interest.
We'll just have to find out.
Yeah,
what we're
yeah, I
getting
mean,
now
that's just,
from
that's the
them.
only thing I can see immediately
could
as
be
I glance
adjusted
at
in
it.
here.
Yeah, because it can be adjusted to it, so.
They're getting a lot less than one right now, because it's in cash. They're getting, yeah, so quite a bit less.
So this is a great deal.
Yeah, compared to cash. Again, I emphasize compared to cash.
I look at it as a great deal, you got 11.5 million in and didn't put much out, and you
Yeah.
get it all back.
You got it.
Well, the
Regional Sewer
residents, the
District.
residents.
That's
will-
like, we keep saying we, it's just.
The residents get it.
Yes.
I'll argue that, you're talking about a massive investment of infrastructure in Wells County. This is an investment to taxpayers, their property values, infrastructure.
I understand, but the regional
And a
sewer
cleaner
district's
environment.
getting the money to operate.
Right.
So that's what I'm trying to say.
And
So-
it's the Wells County Regional Sewer District.
Yeah,
It's
by
not-
name.
It's not Aqua, Indiana getting the money.
But it's
So-
not a department,
so
just
it's not-
remind you, it's not a department of the county.
That's fine.
It is its own entity, I just wanna make, because same way as EMS, it's its own entity, so it's a.
Yes.
I'll split hairs with you.
Does anyone have any other
It
questions
isn't-
before we
that's
step
not-
out?
No.
Now, we'll run this through council on this side and hopefully be prepared for an answer with everybody on our next meeting.
All right.
All right.
I would maybe advise you guys, if we ever need to do this again, maybe get it to us ahead of a meeting, we can get it to council so that we'll save
Right,
the money.
have Roy get it ahead of time.
Yeah, and I think that was kind of our, that's
Just for future
my
thought.
fault, I should have got
Yeah.
No, it's
it.
okay.
We kind of talked about it, and we didn't know whether the money was gonna come back to the district, or whether it was gonna go to the county, and whether just to do a renewal, or what to do, so it was kind of in flux up to the last minute, so.
I have a question for me. Out there at Liberty Center, are they punching underneath the railroad?
Yes, I think they're already done with that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Done.
Are you having to go under the railroad again, going?
I think we'll have to do that going east then as well. Yep, so they'll have a similar closure to that when they have to get those big boring pits and do a jack and bore under there.
I'll probably email you, Nate, about the road.
Oh, yeah. That's
I'm
good.
glad they graded it at least,
That's
because they
fine.
were gonna say they were gonna do nothing to that, and I drove through and I'm like, you have not gonna leave it like the way it was all the way till May.
That's been an
Or spring.
experience with Liberty Center
Because
soils.
my SUV wouldn't have survived it a few days. It was so bad.
Last loose
Thank you.
ends, Nate, to clean up, do you have all the commissioners on board with that 2 million going to
It's
you guys?
my understanding I do, but of course, we've got now a
Okay.
new commissioner, so.
Yeah, so-
I'll be
I just
reaching
wanna
out
make
to
sure
them
that's
to make sure
formalized
that
with
they
those guys as
understand
well.
that.
That they're on board and we can sign off then after that.
And we'll need to make sure we get that on the agenda for your December meeting as well, because that question has to be answered is, you
Yeah.
know, otherwise, we've gotta know whether we can.
Yeah.
we can
Go forward.
Go forward.
And all it is a commitment, because we don't have those funds yet, so.
Correct.
Mhm.
So there's some timing that we'll have to work with Baker Tilly and Barnes and Thornburg as far as legal. We're working with Barnes and Thornburg on ours, so.
Right.
So there's a few of those steps in
Okay.
timing that are gonna be critical, and a lot of that's still in play. I mean, they moved the closing date on us by 3 months, so there's a lot of stuff that they're moving around.
Okay.
So,
Just want to make sure those guys are all
Yeah, I need
checked
to-
off.
and I've spoken, I know with, at least with 2 of them, but I've been talking a lot with Jeff, so he's got a drinking from the fire hose as far as all the things that are going on, so.
Right.
Well, very good.
Right,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, miscellaneous business. Anybody have anything to bring before council from the council?
Yep.
The only thing I had,
Pretty
wanted
thoroughly,
to make
How about
public
after Roy looks at it?
is, I know there's been a lot of numbers being thrown around for the highway garage, and numbers up to, I've seen up to 15 million, and I just want to make public that we, as a council, anticipate nothing close to that number. And I don't want to say a number that we anticipate, but it should be considerably less than that, those numbers that have been out there, so.
I agree.
And I think, I would assume this council concurs with that thought.
Are we waiting on some other, until the county farm sells? Where are we at with that, the highway department?
Where that is there's been submissions from 2 potential contractors to be the kind of the general on that. And then once the group has approved, or the group, which I'm in the part of the group, Nate, Sean, and the commissioners have recommended to the commissioners for their next commissioner meeting that they'll actually make a formal decision on which contractor they're choosing.
Is it a construction manager?
Is a
or-
construction manager,
Yeah, I was gonna say, I thought
yeah.
that's what they advertise for.
Yes, so they'll choose that at their next meeting. I think it's, what, the 14th or whatever? 15th of the month. And then that construction manager will go out and do the sub bidding and all the things to get.
So it'd be very similar to the jail situation, similar.
Where Amoresco kind of sits in that seat
Yeah,
right
they
now,
kind of
so.
oversee it.
So we won't know exactly what that number will be, but I believe we are in a good place from a commissioner standpoint, knowing how to build buildings such as that, and we'll be able to keep a very close eye on that process, so that's where we are.
Thank you.
But I don't think
Thank you.
we're anywhere close to the numbers that have been put out there, so at least that's what I initially anticipate. So,
I do have a question. I think the bonding for the jail, did I read that? That's been, the bonds have been sold, I assume. Curious, the monies, do they come to us and we hold as we make the payments along? Okay, so the county does it. Is there a certain I mean, you just park that in a particular, do we have a certain account or what do we?
Yeah, I
Like a
created a
construction
fund.
account? Okay, a fund for, okay.
To hold the bonds, and then,
The bond money, yeah, the money's for the.
and then we'll pay for the payments from what.
Okay.
and we'll probably go through a similar process.
Will we eventually be ready to move that 2 million back over to, didn't we borrow for from 301 highway?
It's already been moved.
Oh, it's already, so it's back over,
We paid out $775,000 for the first payment for Amoresco. We appropriated more thinking we would pay, but they haven't billed for any of the other payments yet.
okay, so do we need to do any formal movement of that money back over to okay.
It's in all the paperwork.
I know we agreed that we would
Yeah.
move that over, park it there for that payments.
It's already
Okay.
been backed out.
Okay, so that full amount will go back for that?
It is, yeah.
Okay.
And the county farm sale is next week?
A week
Nine.
from today, 6:30.
And I would anticipate that to be a good sale, and hopefully everybody will be on board, this group and the commissioner group, that we will be using those funds to put towards the
Highway garage.
garage, so.
And just one other really quick comment to wrap this up.
Yep.
It is really impressive that our county, from a fiscal standpoint, got a AA rating from Standard & Poor's. You don't know how hard it is to get AA rating,
Yep.
and it kept our borrowing costs low because of that, and just the fiscal nature of what our county does is pretty impressive. So,
Yep. Anybody have any other comments?
I was just going to say, I assume that'll be, do we have an established debt service fund right now? Is that where you have to put the money so that you can pay it out?
Yes.
So we haven't, because we haven't had
No.
debt.
Had one, yeah, exactly.
We haven't had
Exactly.
debt. So it's,
yep.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion to.
So moved.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. We are adjourned.